Hey guys, I'm Lee from Lee Likes Music, the place to share, explore, and learn about rock music from Bandcamp. And in today's video, I'm actually going to do a request from one of you guys. You actually sent me a request to do an album review of the Band Plants album, which is called Nerve Damage. So that's coming up. So according to their Bandcamp bio, the Band Plants are a punk band that was formed back in LA, US during the early 1980s or maybe late 1970s. I'm not quite sure. I actually tried to search up this band on Wikipedia and on Google, but I actually didn't find anything. So I guess that this is a very underground band. Maybe they were famous during their time locally in LA, I'm not sure. But yeah, anyways, I gave this record a spin and this is what I think about it. So the first thing that was very apparent to me when I listened to this album is that it's quite politically charged, and I think that this is something that goes on as a theme and as a recurring thing among many punk bands, because that was the reason why punk in itself became a thing, because the youth, or the young people that lived during the late 1970s and during the late 1980s, they wanted to be a bit rebellious against the political forces and the system that they were living in. And they needed a way to express themselves. So there you have it. There you have punk, and there you have hardcore, and all of this music. And Nerve Damage is an album that taps into the exact same topics as many other punk bands. During their songs, they're discussing the relationship between the US and the Soviet Union at that time, how their relationship is so polarized and how they're expecting this doomsday to arrive, how they're expecting a third world war, and how everything is just fucked up about our system. They're criticizing Ronald Reagan. It's a very dashing album that is just screaming nonconformist and rebelliousness.
Nothing more, won't leave my house. Lock the door, I am the roach man.
What I also found to be a bit interesting about this band, the Bad Plants, and specifically this album, is that some of the songs mix together fictional characters, fictional stories, with what they're trying to predict will happen in the future, like a global war or something like that. For example, Rat Boy or Roach Man, these are a couple of the songs where they're actually fantasizing about this post-apocalyptic world where these superpowers, America and the Soviet Union, they've gone to war and everything is just blown up, blown apart, and we're living in this post-apocalyptic society where basically humans are transformed into these half animal, half human breeds. It's quite creepy, but it's also quite cool to listen to this, to listen to these narratives that they're telling. First of all, I can actually talk a little bit more about Roachman. So this is the second track. This is a very slow-paced song, and it features these moods that are very doomy and tragic. It is quite calm. The guitar is clean, but then when you listen to the chorus, when you get to that part, all hell just breaks loose. All the instruments become a lot more louder and lively, and yet again, I love the narrative, the story behind this. They're telling the story about the Roachman, and I'll try to post links to the lyrics. I'll try to post them down below so that you can actually check them out, because they're pretty darn good and quite cool. They could almost make like a comic book out of this, like the Roachman. It sounds like something from the Marvel universe or something like that. I don't know. The next track that I found to be quite impactful from this record is called Reagan Shut Down the Asylum. So there you have it in the title. The whole lyrical context as well is criticizing Ronald Reagan, and that is kind of nice. It adds a lot of flesh to the music. It's not just music for the sake of music, it's music for the sake of making an impact. Not that I really know that much about the political spheres and the things that happened at the time. I really don't have that much interest in that, but I think it's good that they actually had a meaning behind this, and that they actually wanted to do something more than just creating music. I think that is a cool thing in itself. You can easily hear throughout the lyrics that these guys are very angry at the system that is not treating the soldiers that came home from the Vietnam War, how they didn't treat them in a good way at all. So the lyrics go like this: "Welcome back from Vietnam. Hope the syndrome hasn't got you, John. If you did well, we've got a treat. On the streets is where you'll sleep."
Welcome back from Vietnam. Hope the syndrome hasn't got you, John. If it did, well, we've got a treat. On the streets is where you'll...
Other than the lyrical context, which is very deep and loaded with meaning, we also have some fast-pacing guitars. They're very distorted and heavy. It feels like the band is focusing just as much energy on creating the melody and creating the sounds as they do on creating the lyrics, which adds up to a nice balance here. What I also paid a lot of attention to when listening to this track, Ronald Reagan Shut Down the Asylum, is that the vocalist is putting out so much energy during the choruses, and there's this fight almost between the intention of creating a lot of energy, just putting out raw energy, and actually singing on key. And I like that there is kind of a blend. There's a nice sweet spot in between there that the vocalist is hitting, which is just, man, it's so good. Now, the third and final track that I want to mention from this record that is really representing and just showing the album off from a very good angle is the track 1984. This track is actually a bit more lo-fi compared to many of the other tracks, especially the previous tracks that I mentioned. The sound quality here is a bit lower for some reason, but I still feel like the quality of the song is weighing up in terms of the melodic value, in terms of the structure, and yeah, just the creative effort that is put into this makes it a worthwhile listen, and definitely one of the highlights of the record.
Welcome to 1984. Your apathy's opened up the door. Now the brother, he's spying on you, monitoring through your Apple II.
So 1984. Do you see any patterns? Do you feel like that title is familiar? Because it's actually named up after George Orwell's dystopian novel, which goes by the same name. It was published back in 1949 and tells this science fiction based story of a dystopian future where basically every single human being is being controlled, manipulated, and surveilled by a totalitarian system. In this song, the vocalist is singing, "Welcome to 1984. Your apathy has opened up the door. Now Big Brother is spying on you, monitoring through an Apple II." This is so funny because this album is actually predicting the freaking future. I don't know if you've seen the movie Snowden before, but Aldous Snowden was basically a guy, a hacker, who realized that the government was actually surveilling and they actually had access to a lot more information about you than what you already know. And they still have access to a lot of information through the internet, so they are still surveilling us at a very high level. And these guys back in 1984 used this Orwellian story. They basically perpetuated the story of Orwell's dystopian totalitarian society, put it into the context of 1984 with the Apple II, that probably had just come out. Apple II was, of course, Apple wasn't such a big company. I think it was something for the nerds back at that time. But now the internet and Apple is freaking controlling the world commercially, and that is just so weird to think about. And it's something that adds a lot of depth to the song. That is the reason why I wanted to talk about the song in general, because the context here is just so, it's out of my mind. Now, going back to the sonic sphere of things, all the instruments during the verse work very closely together, and they're kind of lingering in the background to in that way give more space to the vocals, which I found to be very, very enticing, very nice to listen to. During one part in the song, you can hear that there's this tape recorder that is playing in the background of the song, and the vocalist is pretending to be this very outlandish leader, aka Ronald Reagan. And that section is really nice. It adds a lot of versatility. It just shows that the band is willing to go out of their way to be creative and think out of the box. And yeah, really appreciated this song in general. In terms of structure, the mood, the energy that this band is putting out, the creativity, and the context of the song, it all clashes together to paint this amazing soundscape that I would highly recommend to anyone out there. Even though you don't like punk music, I mean, I personally, I'm not that big of a fan of punk myself, but I would highly suggest it to anyone who is open-minded enough to try to listen to new music, to check out this album because it's so freaking good. I feel like I could talk about this album forever. There are many other great songs here. There's a nice flow throughout the whole album. Some songs are a bit filler. For example, Study in Feedback. It actually offers some more funk and blues inspired licks, and that was kind of cool but weird. I didn't feel like it fit into the album, so I'm not that big of a fan of that song. And there were some other tracks as well that I can't quite remember. They weren't that memorable to me, so I kind of just skipped them whenever, I tried to listen to them quite a few times, but I just couldn't get into them, so yeah. But in general, I feel like this album had many great tracks. There was a lot of quality here, a lot of very creative and catchy melodies that were loaded with meaning and with fantasy as well, and I like that. It's a nice combination of everything, really. So Nerve Damage by The Bad Plants, go and check them out. I'll give this album a 7 out of 10. So yep, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this review. If you like to share, explore, and learn more about rock music from Bandcamp, then I highly suggest you click that red subscribe button below. Also remember to click that bell icon on the side of that subscribe button, because in that way you'll always get notified when I upload new videos. Thank you again for watching. Hope to see you later. Stay tuned. Bye.